They say when you grow old, the world gets quieter. That's not true. The world doesn't get quiet. It just stops talking to you. My name is Walter Harris. I'm 73 years old. Once upon a time, I taught American history at Lincoln High for 32 years. I had students who went on to become lawyers, nurses, soldiers, hell, even a senator. My classroom was filled with the kind of silence that comes from thinking, not this empty, suffocating kind I sit in now. The walls here are yellowish, like old teeth. The window looks out to a brick wall. The TV doesn't work unless you hit it twice in the back. And the nurses, well, they are kind enough. Busy, tired, some of them smile. But their eyes never land on you too long. As if they are scared you'll remind them of something they don't want to think about. It's been 5 months and 16 days since I was dropped off here by my son, David. I counted. The day he left, he promised he'd return on the weekend. Just until the renovation is done, Dad, he said. You'll love this place. It's peaceful, they've got books, a garden, even therapy. I didn't argue. Maybe that was my first mistake. Maybe I still believed him. What he didn't say was that I'd be sharing the hallway with old men who scream at night and women who've forgotten their own names. What he didn't mention was that I'd never see my grandkids again. Or that when I called last week, his number had been changed. I haven't heard from him since. Not a call. Not a card. And the garden. It's a fenced-off patch of dirt with one dying tree and 2 benches covered in pigeon droppings. I remember standing in front of my classroom, chalk in hand, explaining how Roosevelt handled the Depression. I remember the look in my students' eyes when they understood something big for the first time, like the Constitution wasn't just paper, but power. I remember the applause at my retirement ceremony. I remember feeling respected. And now a nurse named Candy hands me pills in a plastic cup and calls me Hon. God bless her, but that word doesn't mean anything when you're swallowing capsules just to keep your knees from screaming. There's a photo on my nightstand. It's an old one, taken in 1987. Me, in a corduroy jacket, holding baby David in my arms. Sandra, my wife, is laughing beside me. Her hair blown wild by the wind, caught mid-laugh. God, she was beautiful. She's been gone 6 years now. Cancer doesn't ask for permission. It just takes. Sometimes I still hear her voice in the quiet moments. Don't slouch, Walter, or drink your damn water, you old ox. She wouldn't have let this happen. She would have slapped David upside the head and dragged me home herself. But she's not here. And he left me. Last Thursday, they wheeled in a new man, Mr. Calvin. A retired dentist. Can't remember where he is half the time. They put him across from me in the rec room. We play chess some afternoons. He thinks I'm his cousin Jim. I let him believe that. It's easier than correcting him every 5 minutes. But sometimes, when he's lucid, he says things that make my bones ache. They think we don't know, he muttered once, moving his rook without looking. But we do. We know when we've been thrown away. I looked at him for a long time. Didn't say a word. He was right. We've been discarded. Tucked away like old coats in the back of a closet. Out of sight, out of mind. But I'm not stupid. And I'm not dead. Not yet. Every night, before I fall asleep, I look at that photo of Sandra. And I whisper the same words. I'll make them remember who I am. I used to think time was a river. Always flowing, always forward. Now I know better. Time isn't water. It's dust settling into every crack, dulling everything you once loved until it crumbles. Like your knees. Like trust. Like a father's heart. The care home has a routine. Wake up at 6. Pills at 7. Breakfast, grey eggs and toast that tastes like cardboard. Then TV, bingo, physical therapy if you signed up. Lunch at noon. Dinner at 5. Lights out at 8. It's a machine that runs on boredom and repetition. No one asks questions. No one expects answers. But every Tuesday, I break the rhythm. I sit by the hallway phone. The black one on the wall outside the nurse's station. I sit there for exactly 1 hour. Just in case. Just in case someone calls. Just in case he calls. David. You'd think, after 5 months, a man would stop hoping. But it's not hope anymore. It's something worse. Something quieter. Something that eats you from the inside, the possibility that maybe they just forgot. That if they remembered, they'd come. Or maybe they didn't forget. Maybe they remember me exactly as I am, old, slow, broken, and they're just done. 2 weeks ago, I asked Nurse Candy if she could help me send a letter. She smiled and said, "Of course, hon," and handed me a piece of paper and a pen. I wrote slowly. My hands shake sometimes, the way loose branches do in the wind. But I got the words out. David. I'm still here. In case you wondered. Dad. That's all. I didn't write more because I didn't want to sound desperate. I didn't want to say how I keep his son's birthday circled on the wall calendar. I didn't want to say I remembered every Lego set I ever bought him. I didn't want to say I still had the drawing he made me in 3rd grade, the one that said, "My dad is the smartest man in the world." No. I kept it short. Dignified. I handed it to Candy. She nodded. He said she'd mail it. 3 days later, I found it in the trash bin beside the staff copier. Folded. Untouched. They say old men are paranoid. Maybe we are. But that letter. That wasn't my imagination. That was someone deciding I didn't matter. Not even enough to put a stamp on. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed for hours. No TV. No light. Just me and the darkness. And I remembered. Not just the birthdays and family barbecues. Not just the long nights grading papers while David slept in the next room. I remembered who I used to be. Walter Harris. Classroom 212. Tenure, awards, handshakes from principals. Letters from parents thanking me for turning their kids around. Students who said I changed their lives. I taught history. But I was more than dates and facts. I taught them how to think. How to ask questions. How to remember. So why had everyone forgotten me? The next morning, I shaved. Not a half-hearted swipe like usual, the real shave. Cream. Aftershave. I put on my old blazer. The brown one I wore at my retirement party. It still fit, mostly. Got a hot date, Mr. Harris? Candy asked, wheeling a cat past my door. I smiled. Something like that. I didn't go to breakfast. I went to the activity room instead. I asked to speak at the morning group session, the one where they make everyone talk about their feelings. Usually, it's half naps and muttered stories no one hears. But when I stood up, blazer buttoned, voice clear, something changed. I have something to say, I said. Not about how I feel. About what I remember. They let me talk. 10 minutes. Maybe more. I told them about history. About dignity. About being seen. I told them that being old doesn't mean being irrelevant. That the past doesn't disappear just because someone's tired of hearing it. When I finished, the room was silent. Then Mr. Calvin clapped. Slowly, but steady. One by one, others joined. It wasn't applause like the auditorium used to give me. But it was enough. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I thought David would call. But because I had remembered something no one could take away. I still mattered. Even if they didn't see it. 3 days after I gave that little speech in the activity room, the director of the facility, Miss Harper, stopped by my room. I hadn't seen her in weeks. She's the kind of woman who walks fast, talks faster, and pretends to care with a smile that's just a little too wide. "Mr. Harris," she said, standing in the doorway like she didn't want to step inside. "I heard you've been quite the motivator lately." I raised an eyebrow. "Just sharing stories. Isn't that what old men are for?" She laughed, a short, nervous sound. "It's good. Really. Morale's been up." "Happy to contribute," I said, dry as sandpaper. She left after a minute or two, but something had shifted. That week, the staff started greeting me with more than a glance. One aide even called me Professor. Not mockingly, sincerely. Like I meant something. I know what happened. I stirred the waters. In a place like this, even a ripple feels like a wave. But I didn't stop. I began helping residents write letters. Not to their kids, no one answers those anymore. But to themselves. To who they used to be. Some cried. Some laughed. One man, Storm, an ex-cop, wrote a letter to his partner who died in '98. Said he never got to say goodbye. We pinned them on the wall in the rec room. Called it the memory wall. Soon, residents who hadn't spoken in weeks were sitting in circles, sharing stories. People started dressing better. Eating more. Living, even if just for a moment, like they hadn't been shelved and sealed off from the world. I wasn't trying to start a movement. I was just trying to remember myself. But something strange happened. People started remembering me, too. One afternoon, while I was helping Miss Eileen, a former librarian, rewrite a sonnet she half remembered from college, a nurse tapped me on the shoulder. "There's someone here to see you," she said. I froze. I hadn't had a visitor in 174 days. Yes, I counted. When I stepped into the lobby, I saw her first, not David, but his wife, Jenna. Slim, sharp, eyes like glass. Holding her purse like it might explode. And beside her stood Ethan, my grandson. He had grown taller, skinnier. Hair too long. Face half buried in his phone. "Hi," Jenna said, like the word cost her something. "Hello," I replied. We stood there in that artificial light, 3 people pretending to be a family. "I told David we should visit it," she added quickly. "He's been busy." "Work." "Of course," I said. "Work is important." She didn't look me in the eye. Instead, she glanced at Ethan. "Say hi to Grandpa." Ethan barely looked up. "Hey." I nodded. "Hey." There was a silence then, a deep, hollow one, where words might have lived if this were another life. "I read about your little project," Jenna said finally. "The memory thing. I just helped them remember who they are." "Right," she muttered. Another pause. She checked her phone. "Well, we can't stay long. We just wanted to drop by." "You didn't have to," I said softly. She blinked. "What?" "I mean it. You didn't have to come. But I'm glad you did." She looked confused for a moment. Maybe even guilty. I couldn't tell. "I have something for you, Ethan," I said, turning to my grandson. I walked to my room and came back with an old photo, laminated, curled at the edges. It was David at his age, standing with me on the steps of Lincoln High. "This was your dad," I said, handing it to him. "First day of 8th grade. He was terrified of algebra." Ethan actually smiled. Just for a second. Then he looked at me. "You used to be a teacher, right?" "Still am," I said. "Just no chalkboard now." He chuckled. A sound I hadn't heard in years. Jenna checked her watch. "We should go." They left a minute later. No hug. No promises to return. Just left. But something had changed. Before they disappeared through the door, Ethan looked back. I think that's kinda cool, Grandpa. What you're doing. That was all. But it was enough. That night, I didn't cry. Not like before. I sat by my little window, watching the dull streetlight flicker. And for the first time since Sandra died, I felt something soft settle inside me. Not peace. But power. Sometimes, they remember you not when you're loud. But when you're still standing long after they expected you to fall. There's a mirror in the hallway, just outside the nurse's station. Long, narrow, dusty, the kind made for checking yourself before a doctor appointment. I used to avoid it. I didn't want to see what time had done to me. But lately, I catch myself looking. Not long. Just a glance. Like I'm checking if I'm still here. And every time, I see something new. Not less. More. Yesterday, Nurse Candy called me the professor again. Everyone's picked it up now, even the director. Some say it with a laugh, others with a hint of respect. I haven't corrected them once. Because why should I? I was a teacher. Still am. Just different students now. Different lessons. Last week, a young volunteer named Luis asked if he could sit in on one of my sessions. He's studying psychology at the community college, quiet kid, eyes always scanning the room like he's trying to memorize pain. You're doing something here, he said after my talk on memory and dignity. They listen to you. They don't want to be talked to, I told him. They want to be seen. He nodded, scribbled it down. Maybe that'll be on his future diploma. But let's not pretend I'm some kind of saint. That day with Ethan and Jenna. It lit something in me. Not just hope. Strategy. I realized something. They thought they left me here to disappear quietly. Like tossing a book in a fire and expecting no one to read it again. But what if that book started talking back? What if I made myself visible in ways they couldn't ignore? I didn't want revenge. Not in the way angry men dream of it. I wanted something deeper. I wanted them to look in the mirror and see me, not as a burden, not as some aging obligation, but as the root they were cutting themselves off from. So I started writing. Not letters. Essays. Stories. Lessons. Little reflections, about life, about teaching, about being forgotten and then remembered. I mailed the first batch to a local newspaper. Didn't expect a response. But a week later, I got a call from the editor himself. Are you really Walter Harris? He asked. In the wrinkled flesh, I said. We'd like to run one of your pieces in our Sunday column. People need to hear this. That Sunday, my words were in ink again. The history teacher who refused to be erased. That was the headline. They used the photo of me with a chessboard and a tired smile. I didn't look like much. But the eyes were awake. The Monday after, my phone rang. Not the hallway one. My room's phone. I hadn't heard it ring in months. I picked up. Static crackled. Then, Dad? David. His voice sounded older than I remembered. Or maybe just smaller. I saw the article, he said. You're writing again. I never stopped, I answered. Just didn't think anyone wanted to read. Silence. Then? I'm sorry. 2 words. Weak, heavy, late. I didn't speak. Not yet. I should have come sooner. It's just. You were busy, I finished for him. I didn't mean to leave you there like that. I know, I said quietly. But you did. More silence. I want to visit, he added. Properly. With the kids. No rush, just time. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling. Bring chess, I said. Ethan might finally beat me. He laughed. And I had it, guilt, wrapped in nostalgia, trying to find its way back. When I hung up, I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. Not weak. Not broken. Not even angry. Just awake. Later that night, I stood in front of the mirror again. Straightened my collar. Smoothed back what little hair had left. Behind me, Mr. Calvin rolled by in his chair, humming Sinatra under his breath. Going somewhere, Professor? He asked. Nowhere special, I said. But we both knew that wasn't true. They thought I was fading. But I was only becoming clear. I had the van pull up before I saw it. You learn to notice little things in a place like this, the shift in tone, the rhythm of footsteps, the way silence changes when it's waiting for something. It was Saturday. Cold. Gray sky. December light, sharp but tired. I was sitting in the rec room, rereading Steinbeck. East of Eden. A book about sons and fathers. About mistakes that echo through generations. The nurse tapped me gently. You have visitors, Professor. I closed the book slowly, slid the bookmark in place. My fingers trembled just a bit. Not from age, from weight. The weight of memory. Of what might come through that door. David walked in fast. He looked tired. Older than his 45 years. Wearing a coat that didn't fit right and shoes that hadn't seen polish in months. His face was tight. The face of a man who'd avoided the mirror for a long time. Behind him came Jenna. Arms crossed, jaw tight. She hadn't changed much. Still carrying herself like life owed her something. And then Ethan. Taller now. Shoulders hunched. Holding a chessboard under one arm. I stood. For a moment, none of us said anything. Then David stepped forward. Hi, Dad. I nodded. Hello? His eyes searched my face. You look good. I know. A flicker of a smile crossed his lips. Just a flicker. We read all your pieces, Jenna said. Even shared some. People at the office said they cried. Must be some office, I said. She almost laughed. Almost. They stayed longer than I expected. We sat around one of the square tables in the corner of the rec room, the one near the plastic plant with the dusty leaves. We didn't dive into the past. Not at first. We played chess. We talked about movies, the weather, Ethan's terrible grades. But under all of it, something pulsed. Something that needed air. Halfway through our third game, Ethan asked quietly, "Why didn't you leave this place, Grandpa?" When no one came. David flinched. Jenna looked away. I looked the boy straight in the eyes. Because leaving would have made them right. He blinked. David spoke, his voice hoarse. I was afraid. Of me? I asked. No. Of what I saw in you. Growing old. Needing help. I thought if I ignored it long enough, I wouldn't have to face it. There it was. The thing I had waited to hear. Not the apology. The truth. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the table. I changed your diapers, David. Held you when you screamed at night. Taught you to ride a bike, fight your own battles. I didn't do that because I expected gratitude. He looked down. I did it because I was your father. And when I needed you, you left. That's not anger talking. That's just fact. He nodded slowly. I know. Good, I said. Then maybe we can begin again. After they left, Ethan hugged me. Tightly. It was the first hug I'd felt in over half a year. Grandpa, he said before going, do you think people can really change? I looked at him and said, only if they remember who they used to be, and decide to become something better. That night, the staff brought me chocolate cake. Your son told us to, Candy said with a wink. I took one bite. Dry. Too sweet. But I didn't complain. I sat by the window, watching the wind bend the branches outside. Some trees break. Some bend. Some just wait for spring. I wrote another essay that night. Not for the paper. Just for me. About second chances. About roots that survive even when the branches forget. And the next morning, for the first time in a long time, I didn't sit by the phone. Because I didn't need to hope anymore. They remembered. The deepest kind of power is not in control. It's in stillness, in being unshaken long enough that the world has to return and see you. There is a moment just before sunrise when the world forgets itself. A hush so full and strange, you wonder if time has stopped. It's not darkness, not quite light. Just space. Space to breathe. Space to choose. I've started waking up during those moments. Not from pain. Not from nurses. Just awake. And in those moments, I remember everything. The boy who fell in love with history. The man who carried a family on his back. The teacher who stood before 30 teenagers every morning and made them believe that their lives were part of a bigger story. And yes, the old man who was forgotten. But not erased. Never erased. It's been 2 months since that visit. David now calls every Sunday, never late, never rushed. Jenna sent a Christmas card. No glitter, no hugs, but her handwriting was real. Ethan visits once a week. We talk, play chess, or just sit. I've started teaching him about the civil rights movement. He listens, not because he has to, but because he's starting to care. It's not a miracle. It's not perfect. But it's earned. And that makes it enough. Last week, the facility asked me to start a regular group for the residents, the Memory Hour. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m., I sit in a circle with men and women who once ran companies, fought wars, wrote poems, raised babies, lost loves. We speak our names out loud. Not the names we go by here, not Mr. Walker or Miss Ellie, but who we were. Tell us about your first fight, I ask. Your first dream. Your greatest mistake. Your proudest day. And we listen. We remember together. We stitch ourselves back into something whole. One woman brought in an old piano score she wrote in the 60s. We played it on a tiny Bluetooth speaker, and she cried like the melody had opened a door that had been locked for decades. Tom, the ex-cop, confessed to a regret he'd never said aloud, not even to his wife. And when it was my turn, I read them something new. Not history. Legacy. Here's what I told them. The world will try to shrink you. It will try to put you in a room and forget the keys. But you are not just this moment. You are the sum of every year you carried others. Every truth you told. Every time you held back rage or spoke love when it had to do so. Let them forget. Let them move on. But you must remember. You must stand. Even in silence. Even in shadows. Especially there. That evening, the young woman came to my room. Her name was Mary. She was one of the new aides, soft-spoken, always looking at the floor when she talked. She had tears in her eyes. My grandma died here 3 years ago, she said. She used to be a math teacher. I never asked her about it. I never thought. I just assumed she was done. I nodded. She would have loved this group, Mary whispered. What you're doing? I didn't say anything. I just offered her a seat. She sat. We talked. The next week, she joined the Memory Hour. The funny thing is, I never planned to leave a mark in this place. I was just trying not to disappear. But now, even when I'm gone, someone will keep the stories alive. Maybe Ethan. Maybe Mary. Maybe someone I haven't even met yet. It doesn't matter who. Only that it happens. I've written one last essay. My final lesson. It's tucked into a manila envelope in my drawer. Labeled "for after." Not because I'm sick. Not yet. Not today. But I'm old. And I'm ready. Not to die, to rest. With peace. With pride. Because I stood still long enough and they remembered. The world doesn't owe us memory. But we owe ourselves the courage to leave something worth remembering. And I did.
Subscribe and like. And tell your friends about this video.